Movies have this magic about them, this ability to totally transport us. We go to the movies to step into a new, fascinating place, not unlike our own world, but filled with characters that we get to live vicariously through, where we can relate to the human experience and, in some cases, find out something about ourselves. So why do so many modern blockbusters just not deliver that kind of magic anymore? We all remember how it feels to watch a villain like Darth Vader on screen, right? But Kylo Ren didn't have the same presence because we have Poe making jokes in his face at the very beginning of Force Awakens. Thor Ragnarok. Now, some spoilers here if you haven't seen the movie. At the very end of the movie, our main characters escape on a spaceship and they leave Asgard. Well, as they're watching from the spaceship, his entire home planet, a place that means so much to our main character, it explodes before their eyes. It's gone forever. And immediately there's a minor character, Goru, who's making jokes the whole time this is happening. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy Thor Ragnarok, because I did like that movie, and I've enjoyed my fair share of many other modern superhero and Star Wars films. But when a movie decides to wink at the audience or tell a meta joke, it can be funny, but it can often remind us that we're watchers, we are the audience. It separates us from the film. It takes us out of that world that we want to be swept away in. I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad to use this type of self-commentary. It can be very effective in comedy films. But at the wrong time or used too often in the wrong genre, it's like pulling the emotional e-brake. It's completely checking us out of that emotional connection, maybe right before a tear swells, you know? For instance, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I really enjoyed No Way Home, but aside from surprise cameos, I don't really remember much about the film. And this kind of ends up becoming the case with many of these modern superhero films, that I remember very little about them. And I think this comes down to a lack of me connecting with the film on a deeper level. And my theory, this has to do with a lack of earnestness. So what is an earnest movie, you might ask? I'm not talking about these Earnest films. But an earnest movie, a movie that is being earnest, means to be sincere or determined in your actions, beliefs, and intentions. There's a deeper level of commitment and conviction to the story, and with a sense of purpose. So, remember Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films? Remember how they made you feel? These films leaned into feelings of hope and something to believe in. They didn't shortcut the drama. They felt emotional, funny, bigger than themselves, and yet sincere. You know, even the third Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, which had more of a mixed response, you could say, it still went for it. Like, in this scene. Yes, audiences mocked emo Peter Parker, and they still mock it, including myself. But in a newer Marvel movie, they would have attempted to mock it itself before we could ever mock it as an audience. And by that I mean, the movie would have just been making jokes to prove to us how self-aware it is, essentially getting ahead of any sort of criticism. By all means, this scene in Spider-Man 3 isn't perfect, and for many fans, this film fell flat for a multitude of reasons. But the Raimi Spider-Man films overall felt sincere in comparison to modern superhero films. They committed to story choices and decisions, and there was a belief behind those choices. A commitment to what was being put on screen. You know, audiences are able to be so much more vocal about their criticisms to films because of social media. And so it's almost like movies need to have a built-in self-commentary to address these criticisms before they get criticized themselves. Let's wink at the audience and say, hey, we know this is silly, so don't get mad at us for this. All right, now that we gave you the disclaimer like 3 or 4 or 5 different times because our character joked about it in the movie, now we can actually do the silly thing. Or now let's make a joke about how this plot point maybe doesn't make a ton of sense, and then you'll be okay with the plot point not making sense, right? Okay, cool. It's like these movies are making excuses for themselves in the middle of the film. It's kind of wild. You know, it reminds me of just everyday social interactions as a human. I guess as a recovering people pleaser, I feel like I used to apologize for myself for no good reason at all. Like, if a joke I said just didn't land properly, or if just by being in the space of someone who was trying to grab a salt or pepper shaker and I'm in their way. Oh, sorry. It's like, I couldn't possibly have read their mind. I don't need to be apologizing for these things. It's okay to just be yourself. You don't need to apologize for being who you are. And that kind of brings me to my next point. Do these films just lack self-identity? Because how can a movie be itself if there's no actual passion or vision behind it? How can a movie be earnest and give you something to believe in if it's essentially just a people pleaser? A revenue-generating machine to please as many people as possible. Not to liken big studio films to people pleasers, because I think that the type of people running those studios are very likely the opposite end of the spectrum. So there's nothing wrong with being a people pleaser. But in movies, if we're just trying to cater to the widest audience possible, make as many people happy as possible, your vision, your ideas become watered down. I mean, this has always been an issue in Hollywood, but we have these big budget films and they become, like I said, watered down because they have to appeal to so many people. Hollywood used to make more mid-budget or low-budget films, and when they would make those lower-budget films, they could let artists do their thing a little bit more. The stakes were lower. They didn't need to make as much money back, and they weren't putting as much money into it. So therefore, you could get a little bit more creativity injected into a project. But nowadays, when every film has to be a $300 million film and then it has to make $1 billion, they can't take the chance of an artist just going out there and doing their thing. They have to cross their T's and dot their I's and make sure this is going to cater to as many people and make as much money as possible. So the bigger the budget, the artist's voice is suffused more and more and more. Before the movie ever gets off the ground, its creative hands are tied. Then we have these movies injected with these comedic reactionary statements to help the audience digest these half-baked ideas. Okay, if an idea is not good enough, let's at least make the audience laugh because people are going to have a good time watching it. That's fair. But in a film, if drama fails to move us, there's nowhere to hide. As said in Robert McKay's book Story, the camera is the dread X-ray machine of all things false. It magnifies life many times over, then strips naked every weak or phony story turn until in confusion and frustration we're tempted to quit. And I feel like we're getting there. I feel like audiences are becoming wary of these Marvel or Star Wars movies or Disney live-action remakes. The charade of trying to mask bad storytelling and try to hide behind this meta humor. I think us as audiences are smart enough to see that these big studio films are making jokes to try to get around bad storytelling. If Iron Man quickly makes a joke about how ridiculous something is, then we're going to buy into that idea a lot easier because we trust Iron Man's opinion. It's becoming clear how shallow a lot of the films are and how directionless and how much they lack passion. Story is about mastering the art, not second-guessing the marketplace. It's a problem Hollywood has always had, but it's exacerbated by the current state of Hollywood and the few studios/tech companies that are running it. It's a fear I have with Amazon purchasing James Bond. You know, things are getting sucked up into the smaller vacuum of studios who are producing things. If everything's Disney or a tech company producing it, then we're going to see more and more of this type of thing in films, and that's definitely discouraging. Studios like A24 and Neon have figured out how to build a really great brand and push smaller films into bigger markets. And that makes me very happy. With a movie like Anora winning Best Picture at the Oscars, it's an indie film, and I think that's really cool. But there still needs to be a change in that top tier, in those huge budget Hollywood films. Because if there's still a place where if you go to the cinema for that escapism, and you want to see something with spectacle like that, you know, there's fewer and fewer great films coming out in that tier because we're just kind of getting the same half-baked, watered down Disney Marvelified live action remake stuff. You know, there's fewer and fewer big spectacle stuff from studios that is exciting. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for the new Mission Impossible movie, though. You cannot deny that Tom Cruise is not passionate about what he's doing with those, cinema, or his Top Gun movies. It's great to see movies like Dune becoming so successful where you actually have a filmmaker like Denis Villeneuve getting his voice and his vision on screen in that bigger budget tier. To wrap this video up, I want to make it clear that I don't think meta humor, breaking the fourth wall, winking at the audience are inherently bad things. I think that Hollywood has started to lean on them as a crutch to get past bad storytelling. And I'm kind of sick of seeing it. So I'm ready for something to change, ready for something different. Anyways, what was one of the last big budget films that you guys saw that had a lot of passion behind it, that really moved you and felt earnest? I'd love to know in the comments below. And thank you guys so much for watching the video to the end. Click on any of the links that I have up here and subscribe, please. It would mean a lot to me. But thank you guys again, and we'll catch you in the next one.